NetEase Games has been in hot water with the competitive community due to its very suspicious matchmaking. The infamous Engagement Optimized Matchmaking, or EOMM, has gradually echoed throughout the player base, but many still aren't aware of its existence or its true nature. This method of matchmaking prioritizes maximizing the player engagement and retention time using deliberate predicted patterns of win or loss outcomes. Hence, we're subtracting the competitive integrity in a game, especially in ranked, and it shows, with a lot of players experiencing extreme loss streaks that defy the rules of probability. In this video, I'll be giving you a full breakdown of how EOMM can be influencing your Marvel Rival matches in ranked so that you as a player can better navigate how to climb in competitive. I spent some serious hours going through boring research material full of jargon and bullshit and translated everything you need to know into an easier to understand video. You're welcome. If you appreciate this and learn something that gives you an edge in the game, like this video so that it reaches those who think this is still conspiracy coping, and subscribe for more content. With that, let's begin. Alright, first we'll be discussing the frequently used term churn rate and how it affects your in-game matchmaking. What is a churn rate? The term churn rate in this context refers to when players stop playing for a period of time. So, for example, a lower churn rate would mean there is a higher engagement and playtime within a game title. Since NetEase lacked an index to accurately measure patterns in a churn rate, Foxy AI Lab developed the 8-hour churn threshold in matchmaking. A player is labeled under the 8-hour churn if they do not play any matches within the next 8 hours after logging off. But why did NetEase choose to implement this threshold, and why is it working? Well, if you hadn't noticed yet, 8 hours normally aligns with the person's sleep time, work shift, or even the duration of an average school day. If a player gets back on within 8 hours, they're flagged to be engaged in what's called extended play. When you're in extended play, the matchmaking marks you as a player that is not at risk of disengaging from the game. EOMM encourages extended play through controlled win-loss streaks. Put simply, the game will use the 8-hour churn threshold to track your engagement patterns, which then enables matchmaking to analyze these patterns and form predicted win-loss streaks. This is done to maintain extended play users and reduce disengagement among the player base. Not only that, EOMM recognizes desperate and fatigued players that are more sensitive to the match time duration and pick out matches that are slightly more favorable to win while also in a shorter duration. This is some pretty crazy shit, and we're not even close to the good stuff. So the reason for most matches feeling like an absolute steamroll is because the AI matchmaking penalizes longer and closer games, so they aren't as likely to occur. Their data indicates that the longer a match goes for, the less likely a player is to queue into another one. Which, this does make sense, as longer matches, in my opinion, are mentally exhausting and can eventually seem not fun. Can you imagine putting your best effort into a 20 to 30 minute match just to lose? It's crushing enough to make anyone log off. I mean, even if you did win, you might feel content with that effort and not want to play anymore. But you know what would make you feel unsatisfied and wanting you to play more? Having a quick match that was too easy. You probably won't get that satisfying dopamine rush and continue queuing until you get it. Whereas if you just have a quick curb stomping loss, it leaves you unfatigued and ready to continue the chase for that insatiable dopamine of winning big. And you'll want to prove you belong higher on the ranking system. Who wants their friends seeing that they dropped 2 or 3, maybe even 5 divisions down from their original rank? An article released by NetEase themselves discusses how selecting players of the same skill level or rank for matches does ensure fairness, but isn't always good for the player engagement. The paper describes EOMM having better results of engagement by manipulating matches into win-loss streaks or combinations. Engagement Optimized Matchmaking prioritizes the satisfaction and happiness of the player rather than constantly upholding competitive integrity. The main utility factors that are being used to quantify player satisfaction are the score difference between teams, match duration, predicted churn, latest match outcomes, and queue wait time. These factors are then plugged into an equation that calculates your projected maximized satisfaction. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can I be satisfied when the game is railing me with loss streaks? And that's probably because you play more when you lose. If you show the game that you're a masochist and you're okay with losing, you won't get off no matter how many times you lose, what do you think is going to happen? The game is going to recognize this pattern and keep you down. This is why it's important to get off when you're losing too much. Although that can be hard for many compulsive players out there, still, it needs to be done if you want to rank up. Now before we move on, I'd like to quickly discuss queuing and how it plays such a big role in matchmaking. Queuing in Marvel Rivals is pretty well known to be speedy, but why is this? It's not just because it has a large player base, although that is the sole reason why EOMM can function in the first place. It's because matchmaking can pick more diverse skill levels to fill rather than everyone in the match having the same skill level. You'll notice that you will inevitably get a player that is determined not to be as good as everyone else in the match, either that be on your team or the enemy team. This kills two birds with one stone by having more influence in swaying matches in a controlled manner and having more players to pull from in quickly executing a successful match found. Now for my favorite segment of this video, we'll be looking at a visual that paints the picture of what NetEase's EOMM actually looks like. So we can see here that the matchmaking starts with a request, and then it goes and plugs into a matchmaking server with matchmaking algorithms, which arranges queuing players into competitions to maximize the player's satisfaction. One of these algorithms adjusts malicious behavior control, detection and punishment against cheating, piggybacking, or I guess boosting, that would be, power leveling, smurfing, etc. Then we have multi-dimensional capability assessment, real-time capture of players' capability from various perspectives. This could maybe be like whatever role you have or main. Maybe you play support or flex DPS and tank, that sort of deal. Multi-aspect considerations of balance, network latency, psychological effects, consecutive defeats. Why is that labeled under psychological effects? Who knows? Maybe there's a gambling aspect to this. Interpersonal play, or interpersonal interplay, social relationship team-up effect. Huh. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Integrative measure of competition quality. Evaluate player satisfaction and user engagement through competition simulation and win predictions. So it's not real competition, it's simulated competition. So guys, it's not that the matchmaking is rigged, it's just that the matches are predicted and formulated to favor one team over the other to simulate competition. I'm so silly for thinking otherwise. Churn analysis, assign selective teammates and adversaries for each player. And I guess they got the assign robots. I'm sure that's for quick play, or I don't know, maybe lower elo like bronze. And then you can see in the right the data collection, balance analysis of gameplays, churn pattern mining, group analysis of players, performance rating, capability chart, enhancement recommendation, in-game real-time win prediction. I like that. And then we got in-game real-time comments generation, which I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's what the players are saying in the comments. If you can interpret something else from that, please tell me. I don't know what that last one is, and I hope it's not like... Actually, I really don't think it's that serious. I don't think that part's that serious. And if you want to know where I got that tidbit of information from, it's in an hour-long video NetEase has from one of their conferences. A NetEase representative lady is given this whole presentation, and that's on one of the slides at the end. But let's acknowledge our skeptics. Many skeptics are opposed to the idea that EOMM is actually in the game despite identifiable patterns that indicate its presence in the gaming scene. This is because NetEase hasn't officially come out with a statement that they are implementing EOMM in Marvel Rivals, or even any sort of specifications to what the matchmaking prioritizes. Why is NetEase avoiding the subject? Well, you have to remember that EOMM is fairly new to being implemented into the popular gaming scene. You could say that the player base is a large-scale experiment being used to pull more data to make the system better. The system happens to be a learning AI matchmaker that uses collected data and patterns on us players to optimize its goal of engagement. When an experiment is ran, there is a factor researchers take into account called the Hawthorne effect. The Hawthorne effect refers to when participants in a study or experiment alter their behavior simply because they are aware they are being observed rather than due to any experimental manipulation. Wouldn't you want to keep your subjects or players in the dark to feed better data into learning AI? Plus, you wouldn't want too many players exploiting how the game works, as that would decrease playtime and further inflate the ranks. And if you still want to call it conspiracy, that's fine. I'm not trying to convince you, I'm just trying to inform you. Especially when the information is coming straight from NetEase themselves. If you haven't already, like and subscribe if you found this video helpful for your climb in Marvel Rivals, and just remember that I have my sources linked in the description if you want to check them out yourselves. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the amplifier.